Hey there, Web225. I know I've given you a bunch of walkthroughs for ProShot, the camera app that we can support on both Android and iOS. But what I wanted to do was, and you can tell by the shenanigans behind me here, what I wanted to do was just give a quick setup so that I could help point a few things out that I think are going to make your life easier while you are using the app. It's also, I hope, going to point out a couple of things that will help you as the photographer make sure that you are really getting the most out of the quality of the image that you want to take. So I hope what we are going to be able to pipe in here is the feed from this camera and to make Teddy P famous. So what I have set up over here is, and you can see it behind me here, is the layout for ProShot camera. Now, I have it set up because I'm a lefty, mostly. I have it set up so that the controls are on the left-hand side. You will see the same controls on the right-hand side. I know, having done this on both an iPhone and an Android phone, that not every lens gives you access to every control. So I'm going to show you what that means here on this particular camera as we go through it. But just be aware that some camera lenses, so on the back of this iPhone, there are 3 lenses. On the back of the phone I'm staring at over here, there are 3 lenses. On the back of, let's say, my Pixel, there are 3 lenses also. On the Pixel, it gave me access to all controls across all 3 lenses. Here, the one I will show you is the wide-angle camera, so the 0.5 camera, was able at 12 megapixels to give me the control I wanted, whereas when I switched it to the main camera and turned on Pro RAW, which we'll get to in a moment, it did not give me the same access to controls. So I know that you are staring into a light box over here and it means nothing. So we're going to enter Teddy P. This is my son's favorite teddy, and he will love dearly that it made it to a college classes videos. So first and foremost, you'll notice everything is on auto. The focus we get is the focus we get. The ISO we get is the ISO we get. The white balance we get is the white balance we get. This is maybe not always what we want it to do. So first and foremost, again, for me here, it'll be the right-hand side, but probably for you guys, it'll be the left. You can see, second from the top is the grid control. My suggestion is always to leave this on. The rule of thirds is a fantastic reminder for every photographer. Essentially what we suggest is that if we line up the vertical as 3 individual boxes and we line up the horizontal as 3 individual boxes, what we get are these intersection points where if we line up portions of our subject across those intersection points, we can also use the horizontal and the vertical lines as rulers for ourselves. If we put the interesting pieces at those intersection points, we have automatically, in some cases, created a better photo. So you can see here, I already have the rule of thirds on, and I will tell you the honest to buttons truth. On every camera I have used, whether or not it is a DSLR or a smartphone camera, on every camera that I have used, I turn on the rule of thirds so the grid lines immediately. I prefer the full lines here inside of ProShot rather camera. You can have it off. You can just show the intersection points. That's not enough for me. You can have a faint line. I prefer the big chunky lines, and let's get it there. That's the one that I prefer, and that was just tapping on the grid on the right-hand side. Next, we have our aspect ratio. I have it at 16:9. 1:1 is a square. 4:3 is old-fashioned. If you think about an old CRT monitor, that is 4:3. We don't see a ton of 4:3 currently, unless, of course, you are using the web, in which case we do see an awful lot of 4:3 images. If you think about things like Instagram, and really you can fill in your favorite image distribution site here, those are in 4:3 as opposed to widescreen. I'm going to leave it at 3:2 is also very popular for that very same reason. I'm going to leave it at 16:9 because at 16:9 that's actually using without crop. So a crop means, you know, I am taking that image and I am cutting off a piece of it and then resizing it to fit. At 16:9, the sensors on these cameras are 16:9. That's the aspect ratio. So if I leave that at 16:9, I'm getting the full resolution of my sensor. Next, I will just click on, in the upper left-hand corner, you can see the, that's one of the traditional camera dials up there for type. So this is the selection dial for still image. This is the selection dial for video, then slow motion, then light painting, then timer. My suggestion to you is I'm going to come back to just regular image. So that's the first program mode here, photo. I'm not going to put a black and white film on that. We can actually do that in Lightroom starting next week. I am going to turn off bracketing for the time being. I'm going to, however, turn on my timer for 1 second. The rationale for using a timer is that when I have a timer on, I can hit the button, and what it'll do, I have it on a tripod, what it'll do is take the shake out of the camera. You'll notice these camera lenses are very, very small, which means that the aperture is small. That means that the shutter that allows everything to work is small. And even small motions have a big impact on how much shake there is here in the camera. I always use a tripod where I can. I mean, I am the jackwagon at, unbeknownst to you, tonight is my kids' school's like spring concert. So I'm the jackwagon father that has like the tripod there. I actually just use a monopod, but it goes up to 7 feet. And I use that to get the video. So please consider using a tripod. It will help you get better shots because it does take the inherent unstable photographer out of the equation. So from here next, you can see if we move inside from the left, I have 120, 24, and 14. Those are the film equivalents for zoom on my cameras. That's not necessarily true anymore. It's wide, standard, and the zoom lens. If you'll notice, when I click on the 24, I actually have 24, and if I click it again, 48. That's just by nature of the camera here. So on certain phones, both my Pixel and my iPhone as examples, I have what's called a crop sensor. So it takes the full 48 megapixels of the sensor and it says, hey, what if I reduce the quality by half and you still get a 24 megapixel picture? Would that be good enough? And for a lot of things, maybe it is. I prefer here, you can see in the upper right-hand corner, I have the full, it says 48 MP Pro RAW. That is where you can select the megapixels, the quality of the image. I always think the better the megapixels doesn't necessarily mean the better the image, but the more data you have to work with. So here I select 48 megapixels because that gives me a big photo that if later on I want to crop into, I can. Whereas 12 megapixels, that's still fine for web, that's okay, but now I have less data to work with. It's a quarter the data to work with on my way down for editing. So more megapixels, not better photo, but better capacity to retain data. You can see here also, underneath that, I have format. Honestly, JPEG is okay. HEIC is a high efficiency format that should be compatible with most with most editing software, and more importantly later on with most like distribution services. So please fill in your favorite web service here. It doesn't really matter. I am using Program, which is Apple RAW. So it is not exactly raw. Raw looks really flat. When you look at it for the first time, you're like, oh, this is ruined. It's okay. It's preserved all the data. And then you just have to put what's called a LUT, a lookup table. So a color correcting, essentially filter over the top of it. So I'm going to get this in Program because that is Apple RAW. You can choose whatever you would like. And as a matter of fact, you may have, as you're looking at it now, different selections that I have because that is peculiar rather to this camera. So you can make whatever decision you would like to here. JPEG is perfectly okay. That's probably the default setting for your camera anyway. HEIC is perfectly okay. And as a matter of fact, I'll just change it to 48 megapixel HEIC now so that you can see it's going to work. Next, if we come back over to the left-hand side, you will notice we have flash on the top. My suggestion to you is always turn this off. There are 100% reasons that you would use a flash, but what you don't want is the flash going directly at the subject. What you want is the flash to help diffuse light around you. So here I have a key light that I'm moving around, and now I am being interrogated. That's what it feels like sitting where I am. This is what a flash would do, overexpose or potentially overexpose the subject. What you want is the light to fill. So here I have it bouncing off the ceiling, and it's providing a softer light to fill in. So I suggest to you turn that off. It is, again, of course, your camera. It is your art. Do it the way you want. So I'm going to leave that as off. Next, underneath that, you'll notice we have white balance. White balance really is one of the most important things you can dial in to get your photo right. If you nail the white balance when you're taking the photo, you can spend less time in post editing it later on. Here in auto, it's actually pretty good. This is a pretty daylighty white light tent that I have Teddy P sitting in here. It's really just two strips of crummy LEDs in a crummy little box. So we can change the white balance here if I want to. So again, I've clicked on the auto, and now if I click on white balance, we can change what the white balance settings is. If I click on any of these settings, so this is fluorescent, this is daylight, this is with flash. I actually don't mind that one. I'm just going to use the daylight, and what you'll see is the little slider right behind it. So as I move the slider, I know the answer to this. I don't actually have access to changing the white balance here, and that's because I forgot to change it back to my other lens. So if I click on the 14 millimeter lens, you'll see I get the wide angle shot. So that means to get the same distance, to get the same framing on my subject, I have to move this in. I'll have to move the top of the softbox just a little bit. There we go. It's already fixed on a tripod, guys. It's not going anywhere. Now when I click on white balance, here's white balance. It's the setting on the bottom is manual. That's the one that was missing before. So now you can see I have my slider, and as I move the slider up, it gets to be a warmer tone. If I move the slider down, and right behind that you can see the Kelvin rating. So now it's at 5,700. If I slide all the way down, it's at 2,000 Kelvin. Find something that makes you happy, but I think, to my eye, from where I'm seeing it behind me now, that is the most accurate. It really does have a little bit of a blue cast to it. So I'm going to leave the white balance there, and then I can hit lock. And what that will do is if there's any changes to the light here in the room, the white balance won't shift to automatically adjust for that. Sometimes you can see in the lights behind me, the big one does essentially like pulse a little bit. So we can take that out of the equation. Next, we have ISO. ISO measures how much light we let into our image. So as you can see, when I tap on, it is 3072 presently. That's my ISO value. The lower the ISO, the more light. The higher the ISO, the darker the image is. You can play with this to your heart's content to try and find what's more meaningful to you in an image. Generally speaking, raising your ISO does have consequences. Having, and I will, here we go, the higher the ISO, the more noise you are going to introduce into your photo. So what noise does is it's those little blotches you'll see in photos sometimes, and when you have noise in your photo, it's taking away from the details. Here, again, this is in a light tent. This is a little bit of a artificial experience, right? But you can raise and lower that value to help let in more light or to force less light coming in, and that will have an influence on your image. Another piece that is related, although not the same, is the shutter speed. The shutter speed is how fast that shutter opens and closes to let light in through the aperture. The longer the shutter takes to open and close, the more light comes in. The shorter a shutter opens and closes, the sharper an image will be. So if you think about things like high-speed photography, if you think about things like sport action photography, what you want is a very, very low, or very, very fast rather, shutter speed, because boom, 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 you let all the light in that you possibly can, you get the image so that it looks like it is frozen. The longer your shutter is open, think about things like night photography, think about things like concert photography. But also what ends up happening there is your image gets to be blurrier, especially when we are relying here on the small sensors that come on phone cameras. So that shutter speed here in this artificial environment can really be pretty fast. So let me bring that way, way down. There, that's an open shutter, so it's a very slow shutter speed, way too much light being let in. As I go down all the way to, and I cannot read that from here, 1/8000th, that is a very, very fast shutter speed, and you can tell the light is fine here. The very last thing I do want to bring your attention to here on the bottom, that is the focus. Now, one quick tip here, do you see towards the middle, so where Teddy P's foot is, there's peak there. This is referred to as focus peaking. There is an Adobe video underneath here on focus peaking. You absolutely positively can use focus peaking to your advantage. Now, the little square there tells you the color that the focus peak will be in. I am colorblind as all get out. The green is sometimes the only one I can see. And now you'll see I have this focus slider next to it. As I move the focus slider, and when we get to places that the focus is just right, what we'll see is the green start to show up, and it's difficult for me to see here, but I can see it just, you can see little pieces of green in the face. You can see green in the right ear, so it's on the left-hand side. There, the top of the, whatever, the crown of the bear, you can see there's a little bit of green there. I'll change the color here to see if we can't influence how much of that we see. It's really difficult to tell from here, but again, so you can see the red here on the nose, by the eyes, the ears, and the crown of the head. What that's doing is it's indicating to you what areas are the most in focus. So what focus peaking allows you to do is confirm that the focus is set properly. So is it something that is further away, or is it something that is closer to your actual camera there? So where is the focus going to be? So for instance, if I move my hand closer now, you'll see it takes a moment to focus there, and the background is out of focus. Here, it comes back into focus, roughly speaking. Actually, right here would be the best to do for that. So using peaking, and I always turn on focus peaking when I use one of the Pro camera applications. What that does is ensure that the camera, as you are, seeking to focus into there, that the camera is getting the focus that you want exactly right. Now, finally, let's go ahead. I think I have the focus dialed in. I think I have the white balance dialed in. I think I have the ISO dialed into where I want it. Now I can finally take my image. I hit record, 1, 2, boom, there we go. And we have our first snap. Now I can use this later on in post to crop the image to get what I want, or even to mask this out. So remove the subject from the background and put it on a plain black background, for example. So there you go, Web 225, a much longer walkthrough than you really wanted.